The last thing we want to talk about this evening, David, is Jamaica Broilers, because they recently gave an update about their US operations. So first, give us an update on what's happening with that new update.
So they put the updates out last week, I believe Monday, or on the JSE, and it's just really them kind of just trying to be transparent to the whole process with the USA situation. So they basically pointed out that based on preliminary forensic reports, they're not getting final reports as yet, but it's in the preliminary reports, they've identified significant issues. And one thing they pointed out was namely unsubstantiated accounting valuation methodologies affecting several financial statement line items, including inventories and biological assets. Now, let's just break that down. When you see the word unsubstantiated accounting valuation methodologies, that's a super red flag. You're talking probably about a red flag in the entire sky.
Say that again. What's the phrase?
Unsubstantiated accounting valuation methodologies. So
unsubstantiated accounting valuation methodologies. Okay.
Yeah, so to put that in perspective, biological assets are the animals that you use in your operations. So for Dolphin Cove, that to be the dolphins, the parrots, the horses. For Jamaica Broilers, that to be the chickens, the beef cattle, and so on and so forth. Then the inventory will be like your grain, your spare equipment, and so on and so forth. So when you see Jamaica Broilers say unsubstantiated accounting valuation methodologies, they're basically saying that whatever was taking place in terms of valuing some of these key assets in the USA were not being done in a manner that is consistent with accounting standards. And that's a major problem, because what might have been recognized as $100 in 2022, for example, might have really been $90 or $80. So that's a major problem, because half of Jamaica Broilers' balance sheet actually, between inventories and biological assets, those two items combined, represents about 50% of the group's overall asset base. So when you see that big word unsubstantiated accounting valuation methodologies, and you see with those two key line items, it's a major problem. And they also pointed out that basically, because of those changes that have to be taking place with the valuation of those assets, they're likely going to have to do restatements in the past of their group numbers related to the USA and group's overall consolidated numbers.
Oh, wow.
Which they say is going to have a negative material impact on the historic profitability of the US operations.
Wow.
So what we're seeing today.
And remember, they just made changes at the US operations. There were major changes.
They fired the entire management team.
This is a result of that big change. Now they're uncovering stuff.
A lot of things.
What was going on? Yeah.
And the thing is, we just have not seen the final report as yet, or the final amount of information, because remember, in March, when the report came out late, by the way, they said, hey, you came out late because we found some operational control issues, and some issues with expense management. They said they recorded a loss in the current period because invoices that should have been booked in the past were being booked all at once in the current Q3. They suspended their dividend. So it's pretty rough on them. They put an ad out in the Glean Observer on Sunday saying that NCBF is confident, they're confident in the business. And for me, I don't have any lower confidence in Jamaica Broilers' Jamaican operations. The main concern comes from the US's operations because of how it affects the group's consolidated numbers and how they interact with their creditors and their financiers. So remember, Jamaica Broilers, based on their business nature, they use a lot of financing, whether short-term or just long-term debt, to smooth out their business, allow for them to the capital investments, and also to run their business in terms of cash flow management. These accounting issues are a big problem, because what that means is that if I'm a bank, I'm going to have to say, all right, if you're saying that you have big issues in valuation of some of these assets in the past, what are you actually telling me your business is worth? Now, for context, and this is where I'm glad I went through the audited numbers again, while doing this research. Although PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers audits Jamaica Broilers, JA, they do not audit the books of the foreign subsidiaries. So those businesses in USA, Cayman, and all the rest of the Caribbean, or even outside Jamaica, they don't audit those businesses. So I'm not even sure if Jamaica Brothers has retained their USA auditor, or they could change their auditor, based on what they've discovered. But it's pretty unfortunate, and they say that they're planning to add an internal audit department in the USA, to ensure that this doesn't happen again. But the update was very jarring because when you see the word unsubstantiated, it just says it is about whatever they're doing, in a sense. And that is why, someone said they used AI to break that part of the disclosure down for them to understand what they're saying, because when certain words being used in a company's disclosure about its financial state, it tells you the magnitude of what is actually taking place as they do their reviews. So their audited numbers actually are due around July 2, but based on July 2 and July 3, but based on that disclosure, everything Jamaica Brothers report to have a delay in its audited financials, especially as it seeks to restate its audited numbers, because we should also remember the PBS saga last year. PBS meaning Product Business Solutions Limited. That's a company chaired by PB Scott. That business, its audited numbers are due from March. Those numbers are submitted all the way in November, Kalila. They're submitted that late because of the fact that they discovered some significant issues in Costa Rica, and that's reset back over 2 years of financials as well. So even 1 year worth of financials, which had them reporting about $8 million worth of profit, was reset to about $2.6 million US profit. So these issues in accounting in overseas subsidiaries can have a significant impact in preparing consolidated financials and just overall, your ability to work with lenders and just keep the business going together in a framework that you're comfortable with. PBS has still not announced a new group CFO. I don't know if they've, hired someone new for Costa Rica's management as yet, but you're seeing, that over the last 2 years, in terms of the late audits and just, the uncovering of all of these issues, in different overseas subsidiaries, that you as an investor should always not take caution whatever you read, because at the end of the day, auditor did their job to the point that they were contracted to do, and the company itself, if it, didn't discover these things until later, they, do deserve some blame, but at the same time, you cannot control every aspect of your subsidiary operations based on what you're doing your own monitoring of these businesses.
That's crazy. So has JSC or FSC said anything about this?
Kalila, FSC is a silent ghost. You only hear from them once a year, probably when it's something of a crisis magnitude or when something does come up. The JSC, has not said anything about, the accounting issues, in terms of these issues in the OC subsidiaries, but they said that they've been working, to try and see what is the best solution for the listed companies, because the reality is they're supposed to be another change to the accounting changes of IFRS coming in 2020 2027. I can't remember the IFRS standards. I think it was 26 and 27, or probably 18, 19. It's just so many standards, but there are some new standards supposed to come in the next 2 to 3 years, and accounting is always going to update itself to try and catch up with all of the deficiencies found in the past. So they're trying to find the best way to kind of make a compromise so that companies that are not trying to skirt good governance and provide messages with updated financials are penalized for things outside of their control. Because if you find errors in your subsidiary financials, you have to correct it and take your time. If your subsidiary, if you're doing a major transaction like acquisition, you have to get your evaluators report, independent evaluators report. If there's a shortage in accounting situation, they're not doing any better, you shouldn't be penalized for your auditors being under-resourced either. And you can't just what's a bigger auditor. Because of the constraints that auditors are facing right now, generally speaking, even in Jamaica, some of them are being very restrictive in the new clients that they take on board. It's because they don't want to further burden the staff that is already there doing the workload as is.
So what should investors do with this information now?
So the way I put it is, you yourself have to sit down and understand the business and understand, does business make profit? Yes. are the late financials as a result of them being negligent? Is it yes or no? You have to make a decision from there. And if you're looking at the financials, do you think that sufficient work is being done to ensure that numbers themselves are of the highest quality, or or certain checks are being done appropriately? Because the reality is, coming within our controls, people break them and things happen. So you as an investor just have to take your time to understand what's taking place. If you're seeing extendedly in a company's financials, the prudent thing you can do, especially if it's that 90-day window coming up at least a company, is to possibly sell your shares so that you're not stuck in this position when the company does get suspended, that you can't access your cash. And what I've realized most times is that when a company is listed back on the market after suspension, its share price trade is actually lower, and it struggles for the company to rebound to a higher level. So all in all, just be cognizant of these timelines for these different companies, especially when where they're pointing out that they're going to have delays in producing these audited financials, and the JSE, it's not likely to be lenient. They've had a zero tolerance stance since 2023. So you just have to be prudent and know, hey, if they might get suspended, I might have to just sell. And if they get suspended, at least I have my cash, can buy something else, can come back when it comes back on the market. You have to just be a lot more prudent in this time, as we go through these accounting changes, accountant shortages, especially for auditing, these change accounting standards, the complexity of transactions. There's just so many things you cannot control.
Wow. All right. Well, this is one that we need to keep following. I saw a comment earlier from Learn, Grow, Invest saying that JSC needs to pay you. They don't know what we'd do without you, David, for keeping us updated on all these news, especially going through the details with a fine-tooth comb and understanding and explaining to us what's going on the markets.
Well, I actually go through all the comments on the JSC, and then I catch the points out to the company so they can correct it. So most of the questions on the JSC is because of me. You just don't see my name next to it.
I believe you 100%. Thank you so much, David. We need to nominate somebody. Please nominate David for a Prime Minister award. Youth, just like a youth awards. Have you gotten a youth award?
Back in 2022, Kalila.
Oh, you did. Well, you need another award. You need like an ODE or something. The ones that they give out on Heroes Day, because yeoman's work that you do every single week. Thanks again, David.
No problem.